Most women don't lose men because they move too slowly. They lose them because they move too fast and mistook the rush for something real. What feels like chemistry is often just acceleration. What feels like fate is frequently projection. And what passes for intimacy, more often than not, is two nervous systems reacting to novelty, not actually building anything. We live in a culture that has made immediacy into a virtue. Messages get answered within minutes. Attraction is expected to escalate on schedule. Labels need to be defined before anyone has even had the chance to be consistently known. And in that relentless forward push, something quiet and devastating happens. The very speed that's supposed to secure the relationship starts dissolving its foundation from underneath. The paradox is almost offensive to modern romantic instincts. Going slow is what gets you into a relationship faster. Not because delay is some kind of magic, not because withholding interest tricks him into wanting you more, but because psychological attachment doesn't respond to intensity. It responds to investment. Dopamine spikes fast, and it burns fast. Attachment is built differently. It forms through repetition, through anticipation, through access that is gradually earned rather than immediately granted. Kierkegaard once wrote that immediacy is seductive precisely because it removes uncertainty. But uncertainty is what deepens experience. When everything is instantly available, nothing lands as meaningful. The mind doesn't bond to what it simply receives. It bonds to what it slowly, effortfully integrates. Speed, when you examine it honestly, is often anxiety wearing a confident face. When someone accelerates emotional intimacy, overshares early, reorganizes their priorities fast, collapses their boundaries under the banner of authenticity, it can feel like bravery. It can feel like openness. But what it frequently signals, underneath all of that, is urgency. And urgency lowers perceived value. Scarcity increases worth in every domain of life: art, opportunity, time, talent. Attraction isn't exempt from that principle. It never has been. This is where the contradiction sharpens into something useful. Slowing down doesn't decrease his interest. It filters it. It separates infatuation from deliberate pursuit. It replaces the spike of impulsive chemistry with something that actually has somewhere to go: calibrated momentum. And momentum, not intensity, is what sustains desire long enough for real commitment to form. But before any of that becomes useful, there's something uncomfortable worth sitting with first. Accelerating feels powerful. It feels romantic, decisive, even courageous. It feels like you're taking the wheel. And beneath all of that feeling is an illusion, one that quietly undermines everything you're actually trying to build. Acceleration is intoxicating largely because it disguises urgency as destiny. When a connection feels electric, when conversations stretch until 2 a.m., when inside jokes appear within days, it creates the sensation of rarity. Something exceptional seems to be unfolding. And naturally, you lean into it. You clear your schedule, you reply faster, you share more. You begin reorganizing your days around this emerging possibility before it's had any real chance to prove itself. It feels intentional, it even feels empowered. But underneath that forward motion, leverage is quietly shifting. The modern romantic script insists that if you feel something, you amplify it. If there's chemistry, act on it immediately. If there's alignment, accelerate it before it slips away. The problem is that chemistry isn't commitment, it's stimulation. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter that governs anticipation and reward, surges hardest in the earliest stage of novelty. It creates that particular brand of urgency, the focus, the obsession, the can't stop thinking about him quality, that we so easily mistake for meaning. But dopamine doesn't build security, it builds pursuit. And when you respond to that chemical state by making yourself rapidly and fully emotionally available, you collapse the very distance that gives desire room to breathe. There's a principle in behavioral psychology called effort justification. We value what we work for far more than what we receive without any friction. This isn't manipulation, it's just how human beings are wired. When something arrives fully formed, fully available, fully invested, the brain doesn't register growth, it registers acquisition. And acquisition, once complete, stabilizes quickly into familiarity. Familiarity is comfortable, but it is not compelling. The illusion of intensity convinces you that faster means deeper. In reality, faster usually means more fragile. When you escalate quickly, emotionally, physically, in terms of sheer time and priority, you skip the developmental stages that allow attachment to root. You start functioning as a partner before he's made the actual choice to become one. And choice matters enormously here. Without genuine choice, there's no real ownership. Without ownership, there's no emotional investment. Without investment, there's no obsession. Just convenience dressed up as connection. What makes this dynamic particularly tricky is that it doesn't feel like a mistake in the moment. It feels generous, warm-hearted, authentic. But the subtext being communicated is something else. I am already decided. And once a person senses that the outcome is secured without any effort on their part, the instinct to pursue quietly goes quiet. Not out of cruelty, not out of strategy, simply because the tension that was fueling engagement has already been resolved. Scarcity shapes perception in every domain. Limited access elevates value. Unlimited access normalizes it. When you become fully available too early, you remove the friction that generates curiosity. And curiosity, that restless, forward-leaning need to know more, is the engine of sustained attraction. Once it stalls, momentum plateaus. And plateaued momentum in early dating almost always resolves into friendship or nothing. This is the silent mistake women make over and over. They confuse speed with seriousness. They believe that showing full enthusiasm early is a sign of emotional maturity. But seriousness isn't measured by intensity, it's measured by consistency across time. And time requires pacing. It requires restraint, not the cold withholding kind, but the kind that comes from actually valuing what you're building enough to let it build properly. The deeper truth is that slowing down doesn't mean pulling warmth away. It means structuring how that warmth is accessed. It means allowing each interaction to earn the next one. It means letting emotional intimacy unfold in proportion to demonstrated effort, rather than flooding everything all at once and hoping it sticks. When pace is calibrated, desire stretches rather than spikes. And stretched desire with somewhere to go, is what actually deepens. When you slow down, something re-enters the equation that modern dating has quietly suffocated. Uncertainty. Not the chaotic, confusing kind, the controlled kind, the kind that signals something is still unfolding. Nietzsche wrote that value is created through resistance. And in human dynamics, resistance doesn't mean rejection. It means there's still territory to be discovered. When you stop accelerating, you stop collapsing the discovery process. You allow things to actually develop. And development is what converts attraction into attachment. Men bond through progression, not through access, through advancement. There's something in the masculine psychological architecture that is deeply tied to movement toward a goal. You see it in ambition, in competition, in the satisfaction of a problem solved. And yes, in romantic pursuit. When a connection moves at a measured pace, each step forward feels genuinely earned. Each new layer revealed feels like discovery rather than exposure. And discovery activates investment in a way that nothing else quite does. The brain begins associating effort with reward, and reward with meaning. Not consciously, necessarily, but the association forms. There's a psychological phenomenon called the endowment effect. We value more highly what we feel we've had a hand in building. When he plans something, adjusts his schedule, initiates, earns incrementally deeper access to your attention, he isn't just spending time, he is constructing significance. And what we construct, we want to protect. What we protect, we tend to commit to. Pacing also restores something else that fast-moving connections eliminate: polarity. When emotional exclusivity is implied too soon, the dynamic flattens. There's no forward direction, no tension pulling toward anything, just premature comfort. And comfort, without the depth that earns it, slides easily into complacency. By pacing intimacy, emotional, physical, logistical, you create distinct stages. Stages become milestones. Milestones generate momentum. And momentum sustained long enough is what allows attachment hormones like oxytocin to actually anchor a bond, rather than just flicker briefly. There's an important distinction to hold here, because it gets misunderstood constantly. This is not about playing games. Games are erratic. They create confusion and anxiety. Strategy is consistent. It creates clarity through timing. When you respond warmly but not instantly, when you share genuinely but not exhaustively, when you remain interested but not entirely absorbed, you communicate abundance. And abundance changes his internal calculation. Instead of feeling chosen by default, by gravity, by your simple availability, he begins to feel selected. Selected through progression. That shift is enormous. Going slow also protects something in you that fast momentum quietly erodes: discernment. When pace is fast, emotions surge before the rational mind has had any chance to evaluate what's actually in front of you. You overlook inconsistencies because the forward momentum feels too good to interrupt. By controlling tempo, you create the space to actually observe behavior patterns rather than isolated gestures, to notice whether interest is sustained or situational, whether effort is consistent or just convenient in the early weeks. Time reveals character. Speed conceals it. And a lot of women have learned that lesson the hard way, months in, when the mask slips and the novelty wears off. Something else happens too, something quieter. When you move with calm certainty, your own nervous system changes. The urgency softens. You stop reacting from the fear of losing potential and start genuinely assessing whether the potential in front of you deserves continuation. That shift alone alters everything about how you show up. Instead of leaning forward, you lean back slightly. Not in withdrawal, not in detachment, but in grounded presence. And grounded presence is rare enough that it commands attention without demanding it. This is the hidden mechanism that most people miss. Going slow increases psychological tension without adding drama. It sustains curiosity without manufacturing distance. It turns pursuit into progression, and progression creates ownership, the feeling that something real is being built together over time. When he feels himself advancing, earning access, deepening something gradually, attachment grows organically. Not artificially, not because of a tactic, because the conditions for it were allowed to exist. The real power of pacing isn't that it makes him chase you, it's that it makes him choose you. And choice, reinforced consistently over time, is the only foundation that commitment can actually rest on. Going slow is not the same as becoming distant. This matters, because the most common mistake women make when they try to pull back is that they overcorrect. They swing from overinvestment all the way to emotional coldness. They delay replies artificially. They suppress enthusiasm. They withhold warmth. And what was meant to be strategy becomes stiffness. That's not rhythmic control, it's disruption. The goal isn't to remove energy from the connection, it's to regulate access to it. Think of it as calibrated progression. If he increases effort, you slightly increase receptivity. If he demonstrates consistency, you allow deeper conversation. If he initiates plans, you bring presence. The rhythm mirrors his investment, proportionally, not mechanically. You are not withholding, you are responding in kind. And proportional response communicates something he will feel more than consciously register: emotional intelligence. The quiet message is, I am open, but I am not reckless. One of the most immediate adjustments you can make is simply eliminating instant availability. Not to manufacture anxiety, but because your time is actually valuable. When your schedule is full, when your responses are thoughtful rather than reflexive, when your attention isn't permanently on standby for him, you communicate that your life is already meaningful. This shifts perception in a way no tactic can replicate. Instead of being absorbed into his world immediately, you invite him gradually into yours. And gradual integration generates curiosity. He begins to wonder what else exists in the space he hasn't seen yet. There is a physical dimension to this that cannot be glossed over. Physical escalation bonds quickly, perhaps too quickly. When intimacy arrives before emotional investment has had time to stabilize, what forms is attachment driven by chemistry rather than consciously chosen. Slowing that progression allows anticipation to accumulate. Anticipation intensifies desire without burning through it. It extends the story instead of concluding it in Chapter 2. Conversational pacing works the same way. Early oversharing can feel like connection, but it compresses the discovery arc dramatically. When you reveal your past wounds, your fears, your deepest dreams, all in the first few weeks, you remove the layers that could have been uncovered naturally, earned over time. Strategic vulnerability doesn't mean being guarded. It means releasing pieces gradually. Each layer that feels entrusted rather than just disclosed deepens attachment because it feels exclusive. It feels like something he specifically earned access to. And then there's external focus, which might be the most underrated element of all. When dating becomes your primary emotional narrative, subtle pressure forms around the connection. You start analyzing response times, reading tone shifts, seeking reassurance through the back door of casual questions. But when your attention remains genuinely distributed across your work, your friendships, your own goals, you radiate stability. And stability is attractive in a specific, almost structural way. It tells him he isn't responsible for your emotional equilibrium. He isn't a solution to something. He's an addition to an already complete life. That's an entirely different invitation. The truth underneath all of this is that going slow is an act of self-containment. It signals, without a single word, that you are not operating from scarcity. You are operating from standards. And standards change the dynamic instantly and completely. A woman who moves calmly, who lets time do the filtering, who expands access in stages rather than leaps, she makes it clear that commitment is something earned, not assumed. Notice how different this feels from playing games. There's no performance here, no pretending, just deliberate progression. You're not creating artificial obstacles, you're refusing to remove the natural ones before they've had the chance to do their work. And natural obstacles, time, consistency, sustained effort, are exactly what separate genuine intention from passing impulse. When this rhythm holds, the internal question shifts entirely. Instead of, how do I keep him interested? You find yourself asking, is he demonstrating sustained interest? That single repositioning moves you from reactive to selective, from anxious to grounded, from someone trying to secure an outcome to someone observing whether an outcome is worth pursuing. And here is the quiet climax of all of this. The woman who controls the pace controls the frame, not through dominance, not through emotional withholding, through composure. Speed is usually anxiety in a convincing disguise. Calm progression is confidence made visible. Going slow doesn't delay relationships. It accelerates clarity. It creates the conditions for desire to transform into something deliberate. It allows two people to step forward consciously rather than collide impulsively and spend months untangling the wreckage. And when commitment forms at that pace, it doesn't feel rushed or provisional. It feels chosen. It feels built. It feels like it could actually hold. Because the fastest route into a real relationship has never been intensity. It's always been intentionality.